I notice how you come across somebody once in a while that you shouldn't have f***ed with. That's me.
It just felt like an extension of his Dirty Harry character and of his westerns and so forth, and seemed to fit perfectly into the sort of the arc of Clint's career in terms of an actor and a director.
Clint Eastwood is more than a Hollywood star. He is a legend whose career stretches across 7 decades, shaping cinema with roles that defined entire eras. From the mysterious gunslinger in spaghetti westerns to the hard-edged cop Dirty Harry, Eastwood has always embodied toughness, silence, and grit. But in 2008, when he was 78 years old, Eastwood released Gran Torino. It was a small film, shot in modest Detroit neighborhoods with mostly first-time actors. Yet it captured audiences around the world and became one of his most personal and surprising works. Gran Torino tells the story of Walt Kowalski, a bitter Korean War veteran who forms an unexpected bond with his Hmong neighbors. Beneath the gruff exterior, the film explores redemption, prejudice, and the cost of sacrifice. Behind the scenes, though, the making of Gran Torino was anything but simple. From stolen cars to improvised insults, real family ties to eerie coincidences, the production was filled with strange twists that blurred the line between Eastwood's real life and his final great screen role. Here are 20 strange facts about Gran Torino that prove Clint Eastwood's quietest film might also be his boldest and most personal. Fact number 1. Eastwood claimed it would be his final performance. When Gran Torino was released, Clint Eastwood made a bold declaration. This would be his last role as an actor. At 78, he said he wanted to retire from appearing in front of the camera and devote himself fully to directing. Reporters took him at his word, and many believed Gran Torino was his cinematic farewell. But what makes this fact strange is that Eastwood could not stay away. Just a few years later, he returned to acting in Trouble with the Curve, and later in The Mule and Cry Macho. Yet Gran Torino still feels like a curtain call. The film's themes of aging, legacy, and sacrifice mirror Eastwood's own life at the time. Even though he continued acting, there is an eerie sense that Walt Kowalski was the role he wanted to be remembered by. Fact number 2. The title car was real and stolen. The 1972 Ford Gran Torino Sport Fastback in the film was not a replica or a studio mock-up. It was a genuine collector's car loaned to the production. Its deep green paint and polished chrome gave it an unforgettable presence. For Walt Kowalski, the car was not just transportation, but a symbol of pride, craftsmanship, and a vanished America. Here's where things turned strange. After the movie's release, the actual Gran Torino became so famous that collectors started hunting for it. At one point, the vehicle was stolen, vanishing for months. Fans speculated it was taken by someone who wanted to own a piece of cinematic history. Eventually, the car reappeared under mysterious circumstances. Some whispered that the theft only added to the legend, as if the car itself carried the same restless spirit as its owner on screen. Fact number 3. Eastwood cast non-actors for authenticity. Most Hollywood films rely on polished performers, but Eastwood wanted something raw. Many of the Hmong characters were played by people who had never acted before. He auditioned local Hmong residents in Detroit, hoping to capture real community voices. B. Vang, who played Thao, was only 17 when he landed the role. Ani Hare, who played Sue, was just 16. The decision gave the film an authenticity that polished professionals could not fake. Their nervousness, awkwardness, and honesty mirrored the reality of teenagers thrust into tense situations. Some critics initially questioned the choice, but audiences embraced it. What makes it stranger is how life mirrored art. Just like Walt slowly learns to respect and trust his neighbors, viewers came to respect these young performers despite their inexperience. Fact number 4. Walt's growl was inspired by Eastwood's father. Walt Kowalski speaks in a raspy growl that feels both intimidating and weary. Eastwood revealed that he based this on the way his own father would growl when angry. The voice was not a random acting choice, but a memory carried from his childhood. This detail adds a chilling layer to the film. Walt is not just a fictional character, but partly a ghost of Eastwood's own past. Every gravelly insult, every muttered complaint, echoes the sound of a man who shaped him. It is as if Eastwood was channeling his father one last time, exercising his memory on screen through a character who cannot escape the weight of his past. Fact number 5. The movie was shot in just 33 days. Most films of this scale take months to shoot, but Eastwood finished Gran Torino in just over a month. Known for his efficient style, Eastwood rarely films more than 2 takes. He believes the first take often carries the most truth. The speed of production meant the film had little room for error, yet that urgency gave it a stripped-down realism. Scenes feel raw because they were captured quickly, before actors could polish or overthink. Crew members said the set felt more like a rehearsal than a traditional Hollywood film, but that is exactly what Eastwood wanted. Rough edges that mirrored Walt Kowalski's unpolished life. Fact number 6. The priest was based on a real mentor. The young priest who tries to guide Walt was not just a narrative device. He was inspired by a real Catholic priest who lived in Eastwood's hometown. When Eastwood was a teenager, this priest often tried to counsel him, offering moral advice he did not always want to hear. By weaving that memory into Gran Torino, Eastwood turned the film into something personal. The priest character represents the voice of unwanted guidance, the nagging reminder of conscience. It is a strange echo of Eastwood's own youth, inserted directly into his late career masterpiece. Fact number 7. Clint's son wrote the score. Music has always been a hidden thread in Clint Eastwood's life. Long before Hollywood fame, Clint dreamed of being a jazz pianist. Even at the height of his acting career, he kept music close, sneaking away from film sets to play piano or record small jazz projects. That lifelong passion quietly passed down to his son, Kyle Eastwood, who became a professional jazz musician and film composer. When it came time to make Gran Torino, Clint turned to Kyle to craft a sound that would capture the melancholy spirit of the film. Kyle blended minimalist jazz with haunting orchestral tones, creating a score that felt both intimate and timeless. The music rarely swells in Hollywood fashion. Instead, it lingers in the background like a ghost, echoing the loneliness of Walt Kowalski's world. The most haunting moment comes in the final song. Kyle co-wrote it, but Clint himself stepped in to sing. The decision was shocking. Eastwood is not known for music on screen, yet he agreed to let his rough, fragile voice close the film. He barely sings so much as whispers, his tone cracked with age. It sounds less like a performance and more like a confession. The strange part is how perfectly it mirrors Walt's story. Just as Walt reveals his hidden humanity only in his final moments, Clint Eastwood reveals his own vulnerability through music at the very end. It is not the voice of Dirty Harry or the Man with No Name. It is the voice of an old man facing mortality, singing through a character who feels like a reflection of himself. For fans, the effect was unsettling and powerful. Some swore it was not Clint singing at all, because the raw tone was so unlike his usual stoic presence. But that is what made it unforgettable. In those final notes, Clint Eastwood and Walt Kowalski become one, singing their last breath together. Fact number 8. The growl became a meme. Walt's muttered growls and shocking insults spread far beyond the movie. Fans uploaded clips online, remixing them into jokes, soundboards, and memes. Eastwood, who had built his career in an era before the internet, suddenly became the face of viral videos. It was strange to see one of Hollywood's most traditional stars turned into digital comedy fuel. Yet the meme culture also helped younger generations discover the film. What began as a gruff performance turned into an unlikely piece of online immortality. Fact number 9. Real Detroit neighborhoods became the set. Hollywood often hides behind studio backlots and carefully constructed sets, but Gran Torino stepped into reality. Instead of sound stages dressed up to look like America's heartland, Clint Eastwood brought his cameras directly into working-class Detroit. The houses, the cracked sidewalks, the leaning fences, even the weather-beaten porches were not created by a production designer. They were already there, lived in and worn down by time. Many of the homes belonged to real families who agreed to let the film crew inside. Their family photographs, mismatched furniture, and faded curtains became part of the visual storytelling. In some cases, the production barely moved anything, allowing the weight of real lives to seep onto the screen. It gave the film a truth that Hollywood artifice could never match. For Detroit locals, the effect was both thrilling and strange. Their neighborhoods, often ignored or written off by the rest of the country, were suddenly being immortalized by one of the most famous filmmakers alive. To see Walt Kowalski's story unfold on their very streets was almost unsettling, as if the line between fiction and reality had blurred. When they watched the film later, many recognized their own blocks and landmarks, lending the story a haunting authenticity. For outsiders, the choice opened a window into a part of America rarely shown on screen. Detroit in the late 2000s was a city scarred by industrial decline, unemployment, and population loss. The peeling paint and abandoned houses were not props. They were silent witnesses to decades of struggle. Gran Torino captured this backdrop not as decoration, but as an integral part of the story. Walt's bitterness and isolation reflected the city itself, proud, wounded, and fighting to hold on to dignity. The strange part is that by choosing Detroit's real neighborhoods, Eastwood did more than set a stage. He created a time capsule. The blocks where Gran Torino was filmed have already changed, some demolished, others rebuilt, and a few lost entirely. What remains on screen is a ghostly record of a city caught in transition, preserved forever in the frame of Clint Eastwood's most personal film. Fact number 10. Clint did not hold auditions. Most directors audition actors endlessly. Eastwood does not. He prefers meeting someone, talking briefly, and trusting his instinct. For Gran Torino, many of the Hmong roles were cast this way. This strange method could have backfired, but instead it gave the film an organic feel. People spoke the way real people speak, not the way trained actors perform. Eastwood trusted authenticity over polish, and that decision turned Gran Torino into something closer to reality than fiction. Fact number 11. It almost received an NC-17 rating. The racial slurs in the film are constant and brutal. Some early viewers worried the movie would be rated NC-17, effectively killing its box office potential. Eastwood fought back, arguing the language was necessary to portray Walt honestly. The ratings board eventually agreed, giving it an R instead, but the controversy became part of the film's strange power. Audiences debated whether Walt's words reflected prejudice, satire, or honesty. Eastwood deliberately blurred the line, daring viewers to confront the ugliness instead of hiding from it. Fact number 12. Clint improvised many of Walt's insults. While the script was strong, Eastwood often added his own lines. Many of Walt's muttered slurs were improvised on set, inspired by old phrases Clint had heard growing up. It created moments that felt shockingly real, even to the cast. Some younger actors admitted they flinched when Eastwood growled an unexpected insult at them. The authenticity came from the fact that even the performers were caught off guard. Fact number 13. Walt's wardrobe came from Clint's closet. The flannel shirts, worn jackets, and plain work clothes Walt wears were not costumes bought for the film. They came directly from Eastwood's own closet. That strange overlap between actor and character added another layer of realism. Walt's clothing looked authentic because it was. Eastwood was not just playing a role, he was wearing his own life on screen. Fact number 14. Clint directed without watching playback. Most directors constantly check playback monitors to review what they have filmed. Eastwood does not. He trusts his instinct and moves on. On Gran Torino, this meant that many scenes were filmed in a single take and never reviewed until editing. For the cast, it was nerve-wracking. For Eastwood, it was simply the way he worked. That minimalist style gave the film a raw immediacy. Fact number 15. It became a box office phenomenon. Gran Torino was made for only $33 million, a modest budget by Hollywood standards, especially for a film led by a director-actor of Clint Eastwood's stature. Yet it went on to earn nearly $300 million worldwide, becoming one of the highest-grossing films of his career. What makes this even stranger is that no one expected such success. There were no flashy trailers, no massive marketing campaign, and no studio belief that audiences would rush to see a quiet drama about an aging veteran and his immigrant neighbors. The surprise was not just in the numbers, but in who showed up to watch it. Older audiences who had grown up with Eastwood flocked to theaters, but so did younger viewers, many of them Hmong Americans who wanted to see their community represented for the first time in a mainstream Hollywood film. The mix of demographics created a word-of-mouth phenomenon. People left theaters recommending it to friends, saying it was not just a film, but an experience worth sharing. Internationally, the film struck an even stranger chord. Gran Torino performed strongly in countries like France, Germany, and South Korea, where Eastwood was already admired as a global icon. The themes of honor, redemption, and sacrifice translated across cultures, making Walt Kowalski's story resonate far beyond the borders of Detroit. The strangest part is how this quiet, almost meditative character study became one of Eastwood's greatest financial triumphs, even surpassing some of his more traditional crowd pleasers. It proved that audiences were not always chasing spectacle or superheroes. Sometimes they craved raw honesty. Sometimes the quietest movies really do make the loudest echoes. Fact number 16. Eastwood's dog almost stole the show. The golden Labrador retriever, Daisy, was so charming that she nearly upstaged her human co-stars. Critics noted that the dog's loyalty and warmth softened Walt's otherwise harsh world. In some ways, Daisy represents Walt's buried compassion. She became more than a pet. She was a symbol of his humanity. The strange thing is that many viewers still remember Daisy as one of the most beloved characters in the film. For some fans, her presence offered the only moments of pure comfort in a story otherwise heavy with anger and violence. Eastwood himself has always been an animal lover, and those who worked on the set said he'd had a special bond with the dog between takes. In fact, Daisy's calm trust in Walt felt so natural that it blurred the line between performance and real companionship. Without a single line of dialogue, Daisy revealed sides of Walt Kowalski that no human character could reach. Fact number 17. The film sparked debate in the Hmong community. While many praised the visibility the film gave to the Hmong people, some activists criticized it for leaning on stereotypes. The use of slurs, the gang violence, and the outsider-savior narrative all drew debate. Eastwood defended his choices, saying the story was about honesty and redemption, not perfection. The strange legacy is that the film is both celebrated and criticized in the very community it tried to highlight. Fact number 18. Eastwood runs a whisper-quiet set. Unlike most film sets filled with shouting and chaos, Eastwood insists on near silence. He whispers action instead of yelling. Crew members say working on his films feels like being in a library. This strange method keeps everyone calm and focused. On Gran Torino, it added to the intimate feel. Performers felt like they were part of a private moment rather than a loud Hollywood spectacle. Fact number 19. Walt's death was almost a shootout. In early drafts of the script, Walt died in a violent gun battle. Eastwood changed it to a self-sacrificial gesture of peace. Walt lets himself be killed without firing a shot, framing the gang as murderers and saving his neighbors from further violence. The strange part is how much more powerful the change became. Walt dies not in fury, but in sacrifice. For a man who lived his life in violence, he finds redemption in peace. Fact number 20. The film became a cultural touchstone. Beyond box office numbers, Gran Torino sparked conversations about race, masculinity, and aging in America. It became a cultural mirror, forcing audiences to reflect on their own prejudices and possibilities for redemption. Strangely, a film with no superheroes, no explosions, and no franchise ties became one of the most talked about films of its time. Clint Eastwood's personal story became a universal one. Here are some bonus facts for the true fans. The car's curse. After the Gran Torino was stolen, some crew members joked that the car was cursed, unable to rest quietly in a garage. It seemed destined to always return to the spotlight, much like Eastwood himself. The song that haunts the ending. The final song, Gran Torino, is often remembered for its haunting lyrics. But what many do not realize is that Clint Eastwood's voice drifts into it like a ghost, barely audible, almost as if Walt himself is singing from beyond the grave. The script's lost ending. One early draft of the screenplay imagined Walt surviving, driving off into the distance in his car. Eastwood rejected it, saying Walt needed to die for the story to carry weight. The darker ending turned the film into legend. Gran Torino was never meant to be a blockbuster. It was Clint Eastwood, late in life, staring directly at questions of prejudice, family, and mortality. By blurring his own past with the character of Walt Kowalski, Eastwood created a story that feels hauntingly personal. Strange accidents, improvised insults, and real community voices gave the film a rawness rarely seen in Hollywood. What began as a quiet character study became a cultural touchstone, proof that even in the twilight of a career, one film can redefine a legacy. This is Strange Flick Facts, where we uncover the bizarre truths behind your favorite films.